that I said I need more of this because I'm so agreeable. I need to work on my debating skills, my like logic and rhetoric, and like this is stuff that I never really did growing up. Like I know that exists, but so I think for
That
now I just need to, like how I've trained for like 20, 30 years. I'm like I need to train in this art of conversation and presenting ideas and having it be coherent and actually like substantial.
the yurt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I'm trying to figure out how I stumbled across him because when the guy Chalk Body Outline had him on a couple months ago, and he was reading books back then, I would
Mm,
listen to some of his readings, and then I got caught up into like some of the work that he was starting to develop, and then he had the whole thing happen, and that was pretty cool. And then Benton, I tried to follow a couple months ago through like the Nightmare Dystopia stuff,
mhm.
and then it kind of just trailed off. But yeah, that's a whole like universe that I'm really interested in like interacting with. But yeah,
Fascinating. Yeah, YouTube's the communities and everything in it are there's a lot more of them than I ever realized, and it's cool to check them out and see what everybody's talking about and how different everybody really is. Are you
I'm
streaming
just
this
trying.
live,
I
by the way,
just started
or
recording, and I want to. I'm not sure if it's my headphones or if I can make you louder. It's probably my headphones. Um, because there's a mic button and edit mic settings. Automatically adjust mic. Oh yeah, okay, there we go. Let me take that off.
I could turn my gain up too. That might help.
It's definitely me because you always broadcast, so it's like you're always on it. I'm like brand new to this. I think I turned it up a little bit. Can you speak again?
Yeah, how's it coming through now?
Yeah, I can hear you better. It's definitely just this old Bose headphone. Like the thing isn't working. But thanks. Yeah.
Awesome, cool. And I subscribe to your podcast as well. Um, on iTunes, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we started that maybe 2, 3 years ago. My like co-creator, and it kind of fell off. So I'm trying to regroup and like restructure how we're gonna push forward with like the intention and what we would like to contribute. Because before it was all about fitness and it was like wellness, but we are like coaches, so we were thinking about how to bring more of that to people. But all this stuff happened and it's like been nonsense. So we like got kicked in the nuts and
Hmm.
are like trying to regroup.
I like it, and I think yeah, you got everybody should be putting out or making content. I think it's a time in history where people will look back. Like my dad is he's a boomer, pretty old, almost 80, and he has no real photos from his childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I think when people grow up, their kids will look back and say, like, where's all this stuff on the internet? You Everybody else had a podcast or a YouTube, and they weren't.
Yeah,
I think kids will want to look back and see if their parents or grandparents created content, whatever it may be. But it'll be like time capsules, kind of.
absolutely. Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think even just for my daughter, how nice it'll be that today she saw the microphone and so she was trying to jump on the microphone while I was testing it, and I was like, oh wow, that she'll have a recording of her from such a young age. She's about to be 2,
Hmm.
and sometimes people they have the equipment back in like the 50s or not even, but like some people will have that recording. But you're right, it's so minimal, and like this is just the beginning of that wave, and it feels like it's a super empty canvas that you definitely are jumping on it with how much you're putting out at this current moment. And I've only been into your stuff within the past like month and a half, maybe 2 months, and
Hmm.
I'm really like impressed by like how much you're pushing forward in just the solo 1 hour.
Yeah, I'm trying to build a skill set. I believe in the 10,000 hours thing,
Yeah.
and I feel like if I want to do this, there's no other way than to just record myself talking in front of a camera. But it was hard at first. I would like start with chess and different like snake games just to get comfortable in front of a live camera and talking. And then eventually, I didn't need to play chess or do other little things to keep me on camera. But at first I was hesitant, man, because there is a lot of fear or anxiety about putting yourself on camera. I think especially online, and
Mm,
I still get nervous now before I go live, and I even get more nervous than when I see my numbers go up. It almost makes it a little bit more difficult for me because I've started with, and I've been talking to myself basically in 1 or 2 viewers for a year now. But all of a sudden, through my interactions and growth, I've been getting more viewers, which is interesting. And it keeps me, I think it keeps me fresh. But I think if you go down a similar path where you just stay committed to making whatever kind of content you want, I think your skill in making that kind of content is only bound to increase as well. So that's my encouraging thing to everybody is just like, man, just make content and try to be as dedicated as you can. I try to detach from the outcome, like I think it's Bhagavad Gita
mm,
type style, where I'm not worried about the outcome. I'm just going on the journey. Because a lot of people have they have big goals, millions of subscribers, high number counts, and I feel like if you don't get close to that, if you're not doing as well as you think you should, you kind of like build self doubt. But
totally.
if you're just there for the journey and just to make content, man, I've been having fun for a year, and that's like why I think I've been able to push forward because it's really for me and just to have fun. So that's my big thing. Sorry for that little rant, dude.
No, no, it's awesome actually. Because you actually were touching upon a couple of the questions that I was going to ask, and I guess the first one I really resonate with that more people should be producing content, and like one of the questions it was something it's like it feels like a lot of people are producing tons of content, but it feels sort of mindless, and
Mm,
um but also a lot of people are just consuming there are more people consuming content than they're producing, and it feels like it's mindless consumption for whatever reason, and then the content that does get pushed out feels like it's also like at like a beginner level, like all of us are, and it makes sense because it's like this whole professional broadcasting has now been brought to anyone, so it's like the learning curve is still very steep. But what you're saying is like if more people just produce stuff, then the um, proficiency would increase, and then we would all kind of start to riff better.
absolutely. And to your point, where there's a lot more consumers on, and I look at it as Instagram as a creative platform. And I think a lot of people, there's different types of people who use these platforms. Same thing with YouTube. YouTube is, to me, it's a ball of clay, and I'm trying to use it as a creative tool. And I do sometimes get stuck in the consumption cycle of consuming on Instagram or consuming on YouTube. And I always try to reframe it to like, am I learning from whatever I'm looking at? Or is the content like the content you were referring to, where it's kind of low level? I call it low hanging fruit content, where people don't have a real difficult time creating original content. So they, it's not a bad thing to copy or to model other people and try to replicate what they do. But if you just get stuck in that, I'm just gonna make the same content other people make, it it's low creative level. And it could be like the Will Smith slap stuff, right? When things go trendy, it's like, is that really creative to do a story about that or to talk about that? Or are you just making easy consumption for people? So I think there is a huge opportunity for people to make like real original content, uh, and to turn a lot of their consumption habits into more productive, where like they're researching or like they're looking into the things they're watching from a more critical perspective and seeing like, how can I adopt maybe what they're doing here or what they're doing there? And a lot of times people say, there's so many podcasts, there's so many YouTubers. Like the reality is there isn't, right? Everyone quits. And
Hmm, hmm.
there was a recent article about podcasting too, where 80% of there's been a decline in new podcasts by 80%. So, and what that tells me is that if you go into any of these creative endeavors and you stick to it, you're going to be what's left for people to look at.
Totally, totally.
But yeah, to your point, it's an interesting field where we have these tools and these apps, and they're kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. They can be pure consumption for you, or you can use it as a creative tool and try to get out whatever message you would like to. But
Yeah,
go ahead.
it's making me think like it's all about framing. So when your time is on whatever platform you're engaging in, how am I framing my goals? Not even goals, but how am I framing my time on there? And most of the time when I'm on, I'm trying to like look at, fitness stuff or gymnastic stuff, like training videos, not just fitness influencers, because I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure out like, oh, is this a new physical therapy exercise that I can use with my students? Um, but now I'm starting to look at what I consume, especially like your content and that whole other universe I was talking about earlier, that it's engaging people in a way that is inviting them into the conversation more. Yeah.
Absolutely. The panels are kicking off, I think, to what you're noting, and I'm a little bit antagonistic to that because I do a solo live stream. I do all the things people tell you not to do
Hmm.
because I don't build a community. I ignore my community, and because I do it for myself. But I do go on these other panels where they're opening up new ideas and new thoughts to people, and they're giving an opportunity for anybody to come up and share their voice. And it's an interesting thing where like the whole trajectory of YouTube, I think, is going into more of like, yeah, a panel, a community, and kind of that experience where people are, I don't, it's more open to discussion. Where before, I don't know, like where YouTube was before in the past, you had prank videos, you
Hmm.
had, there's all kinds of different eras, but I think we're moving into like a more host show panel type era on YouTube, which is interesting because you get to meet a lot of different people and you get to interact with them. And that's been my experience to some degrees, interacting with them and finding out new ideas and new thoughts. There was a stream today that was a panel and they were talking about water, and it was chalk body outlines, I think.
Right,
One of the,
right.
and it was like there are different takes on distilled water, tap water, and like that's just fascinating. And hear all these people come up and share their stories about how they love distilled water. But I'm into spring water personally. If I had to recommend one, but yeah, that's go
It's
ahead.
so crazy because we were just talking another, like I've been having all these synchronicities, but my wife and I were just talking about her dad did some research and was saying that the Brita is like this one Brita is like actually good. And I was like, no, because we have a Berkey.
Hmm.
And she was trying to tell her dad that. And supposedly now he's like, no, the Berkey isn't as good as it was thought to be in this Brita. So now we're going to be doing like double water filtration. So I have to do more research on it.
That's awesome. Water is the most important resource. It's underplayed, I think, in value, and it starts at our childhood where people like as soon as you get that first taste of soda, how do you replace water? So with my kids, I've been
Yeah.
I nish soda. I'm against it because it is like it's super powerful on our brains, the sugars
Dude,
and
the
everything.
soda is like, it's crazy. They used to have these ads in New York for like Snapple or Pepsi, and all it was is they would show you sugar being poured over like 30 seconds, and they would show the sugar piling up in a little pile, and they
Yeah,
would be like, "This is how many grams of sugar you're consuming with each about serving of your Pepsi or your Snapple and whatever." And then it made it so real for me, like, oh wow, that's a ton of sugar. Like just the sugar alone is like that's and then so many people they'll drink like two or three within like a couple hours, and they don't realize like how many calories, how much they're consuming so easily. This whole parallel.
absolutely. It made me. I know exactly what you're talking about. It made me sick to think about all that, and that's now I see the same thing in my head when I look at the ingredients. And sometimes the added sugars now drive me up a wall when I see all these. Like sometimes good food it could have been, and then it's like 28 grams of added sugar, and you're like, holy cow, how can they do this? But I think it's a general. I think there's been a long term general degradation of the quality of our food all across the board, which is unfortunate.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, and then just uh, yeah, I could go on about it so much.
And to the
But then
water
I'm
point
thinking,
too,
what's that?
connects to the water, the food, the water. It's everything needs to be, I think, re-examined
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm.
America. We've come to this weird place where food is best packaged or it's fresh. I don't get that if it's processed. Our water is better if it's well. What people have different ideas about fluoride and things like that, but people do believe it's better if there's more chemicals in your water. People are arguing for, I think it's lithium. Is that what it is? In water supply to help deal with mental illness in America.
Mm.
And so,
Sorry, I'm dying here. Like I thought my headphones were giving me proper sound, but I'm like I can't hear. Can you give me one quick second?
oh, absolutely, bro. No rush.
Okay, okay. Can you hear me?
Yep. You sound great.
Oh my god. This will be better. Oddly enough, no, this one fucking headphone doesn't want to play. All right, but I can hear you way better, so that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, yeah. You know what you've been making me think about though, is like the screen time because you talk about the
Oh,
kids
yeah.
being put on to like Coco Melon. And dude, I want to talk about that for a quick second. Is
Uh,
because we have this little girl, and you know, we'll surf and try and find stuff. And usually, I need to play more stuff for her in Spanish, but we come across Coco Melon, and right from the jump, I was like, "There's something totally creepy about this." And it's not like anything is happening, but I feel like there's something in the flicker rate, or there's something super bizarre about it. It really throws me off.
Oh, yeah. So I have this strong belief that screens impact the development of your brain, and more importantly, at a young age. So if you're an adult, I'm not really speaking to that. I do think it impacts your brain, but so with shows like Kokomon, the way our brain works, or any person's brain, is we're hardwired to pay attention to changes in our environment. We're like animals, and that keeps us alive. So it's hardwired into us. So when you look at a screen, a show, it's changing so rapidly. A child's brain is forced to stare at it. Doesn't matter where you take a baby. I have children, or any kid. If there's a screen in the room and it's changing, right, scenes or whatever, the kid's going to look at it and stare at it.
Right.
And so, to things like Coco Melon, it's advertised as educational. That's the first lie, because your kids aren't really learning a lot of things, and there's a lot of other problems that people are encountering from this. But the frame rate changes so fast to that point that your child
Mm.
just stares at it, they beam. And also the color patterns they use, it's very stimulating, right, to look at those, and it's pleasing. um, Colors do things to us, so the way the show's designed in and of itself is just very attractive, and they have the musical aspect of it as well. So what they think the children are trying to learn, they're really not learning. Children need humans to learn. So they're finding out now that children who have too much screen time have speech problems. And we noticed that coming out of the pandemic. A lot of people are like, "Oh, how many more kids need speech behavior therapy classes now?" A lot of them, because they had so much screen time, they watching animation, when they were trying to replicate what these characters are saying, their mouth doesn't match the animation, right? So the words come out distorted, right?
Mm. Mm.
And so that's why a lot of times these young children who have high amounts of screen time have delayed speech or improper speech or repetitive speech, because they're trying to mimic a screen. So that's also the part of where I'm pointing out, like, where do screens cause autism, or do they influence the probability of autism? Perhaps, because it's already impacting speech development.
Right. Right.
So like whether it's Coco Melon or any other kids show, I I highly discourage it, because the first lie is education.
Mm.
We learn through humans. We model human behavior. We don't model animated behavior. And when we try to model animated behavior, we're always going to fail. I have a 3-year-old child. I do let her watch movies and shows. And my approach to that is always high quality, or
Mm-hmm.
like, and I watch it with them, because it's always questions, right?
Right. Right.
And I think movies and shows, if you do sit and watch them with a child, it's an American thing to do. It's bread and butter. I grew up with it. I'm not going to take it away from my kid. But you try to like explain these things to him, and you make it a social event rather
Agreed.
than
Yeah. Yeah.
anything else. So I'm not just saying like, oh, throw out, don't let your kids ever watch movies or TVs. Like, I like watching uh, just the best of the best, whatever it is. And I try to avoid watching things repeatedly. right? Like
Mm,
a new movie like The Dark Crystal, which is kind of scary, but The Goonies, or I don't know. One time, 90s movies. I've been watching the movie I've been watching recently is Moses. That's not Moses, it's the Prince of Egypt, right?
mm.
DreamWorks. And so I'm trying to explain that to my 3 year old. It's been rather difficult because it's the Bible. And God's in this story, and it's a difficult story to try to explain to a child. But I enjoy it. I think there's powerful things to take away from some of these films or some of these movies, but sitting your kid in front of a screen, I understand why parents do it sometimes, and I feel bad, but I advise against it wholeheartedly.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, it's making me think we're talking about food and how the soda is synthetic, and then the shows that you're watching is like, okay, it's not even a real experience, but you could do a little bit better at least by having it be real people instead of being another synthetic, like an imitation of a human interaction. So like we keep like extracting it further and further from like anything that would be like a real thing. Like, and what you're saying is right. Make it a social experience. So at least like there's another element to it than just passive observing. It's like, okay, now we are interacting and we're having a conversation about this. It's not just being poured into you and you don't interact.
Yes. And my rule of thumb is I always watch the propaganda before my child watches. I have to
Right.
understand it full heartedly, at least to the best of my ability, because I do think all of these shows have subtle messages or whatever they are. And I got to be able to like at least address it, or if my child thinks about it, or know like, oh, that's where they got that idea or that thought
Yes.
from.
Yes.
Because the thing is, children aren't original, right? Everything that they have, they take from the world. So, and if you just let your child watch unfiltered screen time or YouTube's, even like in the adolescence, they're going to absorb a lot of things. And we're growing up in our children are growing up in a different world. And I got to experience this as well, where my father was, he's a PhD student, and he was in college and he had to do all of his homework at the library. So one of his classmates was pretty competitive. They used a razor blade to cut out certain pages of the books they were all required to read, right? To keep them from having as good of a grade on the class assignment. But you can't do that anymore. You can't limit information from anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of it's a weird world to live in when like you can in one day unwatched a child can absorb way more information than
Yeah. Yeah.
it's unimaginable really to
Yes. Yes.
it's a different world. But to your point about food, water, and now consumption with our minds, um, everything's kind of altering I think our physical states. If you watch unhealthy media, unhealthy content, or too much of it, it's not going to be good for you.
Yeah. I'm jumping back to like, the idea of like, well, we're being kind of pulled into this YouTube and this digital world more and more. And the one thing that like I hope to achieve with whatever I'm doing right now with the beta way thing is to like show that I exist here digitally, but then also say there's a place that you can come out of the digital world and there's a physical location that you can then have this experience of moving your body and interacting with people.
Mm, I like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, the duality of it. That's really cool because that is the whole thing I try to push for too. Is my big belief when it comes to screens is that uh, for adults they're fine. I'm not going to tell adults what to do with screens, but I do believe the best way to live life is outside,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
moving your body and being around people and engaging in the real world. And the way I look at society, it's almost like we're just being encouraged to stay home and to not go outside and to perceive everybody as a threat for some reason,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's like, oh, they coughed, or they don't go to the same church as me, whatever it is. We're kind of like becoming recluses, and I'm the exact opposite of it. Like, hey, go out, have fun. People are the best part of life, and they're even better in person.
Agreed, very much so. Um, one of the things I was saying, and you kind of touched upon it earlier, is like that some of your posts on Instagram, they're kind of like, you're teasing about like, oh, about to go and start a live podcast for like an audience of one. And
Yeah.
I definitely really like, I wouldn't have guessed for some reason. I always think that people are being, their numbers are being reduced, especially when I was on Instagram. When I first started, I would have a big level of engagement and followers. But then once they got bought out by Facebook, my engagement, all of the kind of interaction I had, like dropped down a cliff. It's like crazy what happened. So I was thinking for you, I was like, what you're doing is so novel and so engaging. I'm like, I can't believe that you're only getting one or two people. So I thought it was like hyperbole, but it sounds like it's genuine, and now it's finally starting to pick up for you. Um, and then what I
Yeah.
was gonna say about it was that I appreciate that you are kind of loose about it, because it kind of takes away that kind of stress that we are starting to be put on with like how many likes, how many people are following me, how many shares, all that stuff. Like I think that's kind of putting a handicap on us.
Absolutely. And I thrive under the belief that if I do what I want, success will come. And if people want success immediately, right?
Hmm.
But the reality is, I'm not ready for it. My content's not that good, anyways. I'm right where I need to be. And that's
Hmm.
where I think most people should want to start. And if you start at the finish, like, oh, you're already monetized. Like, I want to fight for that. Like, I want to fight for 1,000 subscribers. I don't want to buy them. I want to like just people who really, for some reason, just like what I like. And so it's kind of a fun game for me. And that's what I look at it, because I used to play a lot of video games when I was younger. And to me, it's like trying to figure out how I can play this growth and fun. Like, how can I make this fun and grow and level up and hit all these arbitrary achievements that people really value? But I don't care. It'll just be fun when I get there. But yeah, it is important just to kind of not care about how many subscribers or likes or views, because you just should post things because you wanted to post it. And I never want to make content or do content that it's for somebody else.
Hmm.
Right? That's why I talk to myself for an hour. I got to keep it real with myself. So yeah, man, I encourage anybody, if they're worried about likes and or subscribers and that's inhibiting them from creating content, don't worry. They'll come as long as you're consistent.
Totally. That's, and it goes back to what you were saying earlier. It's like 80, you didn't put a number, but you said, oh, I think you did. You said 80% of the people who start a podcast, or at least the numbers are dropping, that
Mhm.
whoever puts out podcasts within the first year, it's going down, or there isn't as much new people producing. You were saying something like that, right?
Absolutely. There's an 80% decrease in new podcasts.
Right, right. And so this is like this thing I started to notice. It's like the game, it is so easy at the moment because there's such a low barrier at entry, and it's like all you really have to do is go outside, show up and do something, and it's going to outshine most people, because most people aren't even going outside. They're staying inside. They're not even going to the restaurant to meet a beautiful woman or whatever. It's like they're being shut in, like physically, like literally, and then also like expressively. They don't want to go out and share their ideas. So, and then it makes so much room for someone like you to shine really bright. And I think, it's more than that, but yeah.
Absolutely. And anyone else. And the self censorship or like what will people think? Really, I think it's fears about the future and fears that of things that haven't happened. And I experience those still in my life. I think everybody can dream up fears,
Sure,
but
sure.
you get past them, and then you build up a good habit of just belief in doing what you're doing. Yeah, I don't really have fears anymore when it comes to making content. Like, my biggest fear is that I'm going to be successful, or like something will go viral, or
Yeah,
like
yeah.
people will like my content. That's my fear. My fear is all of a sudden I'm popular. Like, oh no, what am I going to do?
So that was something else I was going to ask. You created this persona digitally, the Provo Kid, because I didn't know this. There's a place called Provo, Utah. Um,
Mhm.
but what I was going to ask is, wh- why did you start this expression? And then, like, is there a story that you want to tell, or is it, yeah, is there a story that you're trying to tell through Provo Kid?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So Provo Kid, if you put it together, it's provoked, right?
Shit.
And Provo is also an anarchist movement in Amsterdam, I believe. That I don't fully embrace the ideas behind it at all, but
Mm-hmm.
I identify as an individual anarchist. So it's kind of like anarchy, provoked, and then Provo, Utah, Mormonism, Utah, where I'm from. And the idea of creating the character was that I don't believe anybody's really themselves online. So even if you have a private account on Instagram or on YouTube, whatever, and you only post your family videos and pictures, that's a persona.
Right.
That's your best attempt at putting your best self up there. So I didn't want to try to persona my own self. So I thought it
Totally.
was, and I looked at other creators, and one of them is Doctor Disrespect. He does video games, and his name's Guy Beam. But he created this persona, this character, and I looked at some of these other people, and they created characters, and I realized that that was the best path forward, was to create a character that was synonymous with who I was, so I didn't have to really act. I wasn't trying to
Mm-hmm.
be anything
Mm-hmm.
else but myself. And so that's kind of how Provo Kid came out. Was I was trying to create the most authentic online avatar I could, because we're all trying to be. I mean, if I was just trying to say like, "Hey, my name Chance Blakelock," right? It's not me. That's not me online.
Right.
Because we all have personas in the world of autism. They call it masking. So right now, I'm masking online my internet persona, which is known as Provo Kid. And I think that when you realize that you're creating a character, the whole point is then you become artistically more empowered, right?
Yes. Yes.
And I have a lot more ability to think. I'm not, because who I am has been labeled my entire life. Like I'm this, I'm that, as far as it goes to my name, Chance.
Mm-hmm.
But when I'm Provo Kid, that's me. I made that. And the attributes and the things I want to talk about or embellish, it's fun, it's creative, and I get to create art on Instagram, or I use other YouTubers like King Cobra
Dude.
as a model of me. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's just fun when you can create an online persona. But to answer your question, that's kind of the, I guess, the idea behind it all.
Very cool. Now I'm thinking like, okay, so you are finding inspiration from the King Cobra guy, which is like the stuff that you put out on your page and stuff of him is like solid gold. Um, and then I'm thinking, well, because if you continue on, which I would imagine you would, and you gain more traction, which I imagine you will, that like then you will be someone that someone else is looking at and then gaining inspiration from. And I think that's like one of the coolest things that we could do. It's like, you're not biting someone's style, you're just saying, I enjoy these components of you, where I want to in embody these a little bit more, because there's something that I'm trying to say. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives me a lot of room, I think, to create things. And when I look at other people and I try to emulate them in small ways, like I'm never really original. Like I do take a little bit of King Cobra, I take a little bit of Dr. Disrespect, and I can't imagine, I do want to inspire other people to make more content. And that was the whole reason why I started my YouTube page, to be honest. I was in my master's program, and I was working in a school, and there was a lot of kids who liked YouTube. And I wanted to tell them, no, 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 you can make a YouTube and make money. And like anybody can make a YouTube. I was trying to encourage these kids to like pursue their goal. Cause when I was young, it's like, you can't make money playing video games. You got to do
Mm,
this, you got to do that. And I didn't want to make what I thought would be those same mistakes to these kids and say like, well, you know how hard it is to be a YouTuber. Like, don't do that. Like, you just got to read books. So I made a YouTube because I wanted to talk up what I preached. So I said I made a YouTube, and my first YouTube videos were book reviews. I just did a review of all the books I read that year, and then I did a painting, and I did yoga. But it was just to kind of model the behavior for other
Mm-hmm.
people, to show them like, look, the bar's low. That's why I wrote a book. I'm an author, and I self-published, and I've made the book as easy as possible. I wrote an essay so I could really call myself an author in the beginning about anarchy, and then the rest of the book is a collection of quotes. Right? It's easy to make books, and I don't want people to be intimidated by titles or like
Right. Right.
things like that. It's like the bar is low. Anyone can be successful. Just try.
Yeah. Now I'm really reflecting back in like why this is happening, like this moment, me talking to you, and I guess I've gained a little bit of inspiration from definitely from you, and that I was like, oh, you know what? Like most of the stuff I ever put out, it's just me moving my body, doing movement flips and stuff like that, or the performance aspect. But I realized I need to start to put out more of me speaking and saying my ideas on a screen. I never really want to do that, but I definitely would say I've been inspired by watching what you do and just how you riff for a whole hour. And so, yeah, it like, and then the title goes away of like, oh, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. It's like, yeah, you're just putting stuff out there. And then like, once you start to ease into it, it'll start to just flow.
It it does, and I think it's imperative more people put their voice out there, because all the news headlines are like what people say. Like 50% of people say this. Well, if more people really put their voices out there,
Mm, mm,
I think a lot of these headlines would be a little bit more challenged by just the vast swaths of people sharing their opinions. And people say, well, look at Twitter. I mean, and they use that as a metric, but how many of those things are bots? And that's a
right,
small
right.
metric of America anyway, who's on Twitter. So
Totally. Yeah.
there's not really a lot of people sharing, and I think there needs to be more. There's so much value. Like you could post both your videos of you exercising, and then you could have you talking out loud, and then you have something in between too, where you talk about the videos you post and you explain that, and you have
Right.
a whole arena. I think of content that is at your disposal, and I think everybody has something like that, right?
Agreed.
Everybody has their own little garden of content, and I'm always surprised. Every Saturday I go on TikTok for Instagram, and I'm always surprised at some really successful TikTokers who turn something obscure in their
Mm,
life into something a lot of people find interesting. And I think a lot more there's a lot more interesting people out there. They just, maybe they're camera shy or don't want to be on a podcast. But I had a podcast just recently with a wonderful woman. She has a podcast called Flipside.
mm,
You should do a podcast with her. Um, and she doesn't have a YouTube. And I'm encouraging her. Like, there's some people who make content in one arena and not the other.
right.
And I think that's fine. But I think there's just so much opportunity to create in both fields, a video spectrum, and you can do just audio as well on YouTube. We could just post the audio of this if you wanted.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, but I encourage everybody, like, if you want to make a podcast, maybe just start with Spotify or iTunes, but don't discount putting it up on YouTube or any other place you can, and growing your audience. That's why I think of the internet as a web.
Totally.
So, and each website is a free billboard. So you got to have a billboard on Instagram, got to have a billboard on YouTube, and I have a Twitter I don't use, but
Mm-hmm.
it has a link to my podcast just in case. But yeah, build your web on online, and I think you'll be surprised what trickles in, and your
Yeah.
audience will grow for sure.
Yeah, because some people they only. I mean, even recently, I started going on Telegram, and I'm like, even that's something else that most people
Oh
are
yeah,
not interacting on. But then that's a whole other community, that's a whole other world, and a way of interacting with people. But then I was going to ask you about TikTok, because I really appreciate every Saturday, Sunday you put out the whole cringe compilation,
Yeah.
and I wanted you maybe just to speak a little bit about. I'm terrified of TikTok. Like I haven't downloaded it on my phone, and so maybe you could speak a little bit about that whole experience. And yeah.
So I got into TikTok I got into this angle where I was bothered by a lot of the self-diagnosis, the promoting of mental illness, in weird ways in the algorithms on TikTok. So I started following all of these accounts, and I built up a really good collection of just weird individuals, quirky individuals. So my feed's different than most people, but where I just got a really good feed of cringe. But I think if you go to TikTok, the feeds are curated to drive certain types of people to certain behaviors, certain
Mm-hmm.
thoughts, certain ideas, certain beliefs. And one common one right now is the perspective on the Ukraine war, which is interesting that you can go on an app like TikTok and see clips and highlights from the Ukraine war. Where I mean, I don't like that. I find it very odd and interesting that a Chinese app is promoting the Ukraine war on the TikTok app. Where I question the morality of whether people should, even if you are in a time of war, a place of war, should you be posting anything? Because that person may be alive in that TikTok video, but a day later they weren't. So someone sees the video and they might think they're alive. They might not. I don't know. But
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot to it. It's super heavy.
and then to the mental health part, like what I like looking at is, um, I there's what I got drawn into the multiple personality aspect of TikTok, where a lot of people started self-diagnosing themselves with split personality disorder, or there's another new term for it. But just seeing the rabbit hole of where people get reinforced for having mental health problems, more likes, and the more extreme maybe their video might be, or the display of certain behaviors, the more
Mm.
shares and the more reinforcement. So it was weird to go on TikTok and see these weird uh, feedback loops for people, to where like you would want to be getting out of this type of maybe unhealthy mental health situation by seeking proper help, going to a therapist. I don't know, whatever it might be, a person might need, but seeking those things. But when you realize that your success on TikTok would diminish if your quirky behaviors and meltdowns disappeared, that would leave people with not a lot to watch.
Mm-hmm.
So what I don't
Mm-hmm.
really highlight all of that, but I highlight a wider range of things. But um, there's a weird dark side to TikTok, and I heavily discourage anybody from allowing their children to use it.
Dude, yeah, yeah, totally. It's like another thing where the little bit I've seen through Instagram where people repost it, I'm like, there's I don't know, that again, it's the colors for me. There's something about the colors and just like how it kind of flows. It just blends from one thing to the next. And I guess Instagram and YouTube Shorts are doing that. They're kind of mimicking it.
Oh, yeah, and to your point, where there's a lot of things that are happening right now with social media that are fascinating, where YouTube is turning into, I think, TikTok. And so that's a micro level. If you want to grow your channel really fast right now, I suggest posting and clipping podcast short. Like, so do the podcast, post it, but YouTube's algorithms are going to boost any short you post.
Mm,
So if you really want your channel to grow, uh, I've been encouraging people to like do shorts, right? That's what YouTube wants. But on the macro level, the higher level, YouTube wants panels. And I do believe there's been an encouraging
mm,
movement for more panels all across the board. And you see it in debates, in the debate sphere. You see it in like the conspiracy circle, and you see it in the drama circle. Like all the circles of YouTube, panels are becoming more and more common. So at a macro level, they want more people creating content together collaboratively. And on a micro level, they want individuals posting more shorts for quicker content. So long form panel content, because people can keep the show going.
mm.
And then, so like, I think that's what the YouTube's trying to do right now on that end, where they're capitalizing and things are the I guess the what is it, YouTube's copying TikTok, Instagram's copying TikTok. It's all reels, it's all shorts.
Yeah, yeah.
It's the way to go forward.
The thought I have on both of those ends, it's nice because now I'm gonna start to visualize the space differently for at least YouTube. The panel part, I was like, just kind of, I'm just trying to. He says, Drew from the Chalk Body Outline, he says like, make conspiracies schizo again. And I was like, I really like that idea because it encourages like creative thinking, big ideas, and not being just because that's how anything ever changes. It's like we didn't get this computer because everyone kind of just went along to their life. It's like someone had a really out there, or lots of people had out their ideas, and now here we are, 100,000 years later, whatever. So I was thinking about the panels, and I think if this is just the idea that if it's all about data collection and processing data and getting more data, that these panels are an opportunity to observe something that you can't really get just by watching people individually, like through their click rate or how long they're on a certain application, because now you have social interaction, which is even more organic, and you have all these different components of peoples and personalities, and you get to pull information, you get to pull language, you get to pull tone and all this, and I'm sure even like it can see what our eyes are doing, and I'd imagine it really wants to encourage that because that's a whole other component that it can't do at this moment, as well as, hey, present it to them and now we'll observe this behavior.
Fascinating. I think you're absolutely onto something with that. And there's got to be so much data to be collected and a lot of information to be gleaned from all of these social interactions that I think had a rough start in the previous 3 years when they tried to transition into Zoom, and the workplace there were probably wasn't running as smoothly in terms of also translating that medium to YouTube, where it wasn't quite available. But all of a sudden you get StreamYard, right? And StreamYard is changing the game
For real.
for streamers, and it's kind of fascinating, and it's a great time, like we were talking about, to jump in and to go on panels and to grow. That's the other thing I've noticed is when I go on these other panels and I do this, it's one of the fastest ways to increase people's ability to go to my channel or find interest in my channel.
Yes.
So just quick pop onto a Jim Bob or the Chalk Body Outline, and it can help you as a content creator, which is
You're good
interesting.
with it. Yeah, you come in real quick on the because I normally don't see you in these things except for like those quick little jump ins, and like what told me was that one time Benton mentioned you in like just as a text comment, and I was like, oh, if Benton knows Provo, then like that's like, and he respects, because I respect him even though I don't know him, but like the way he speaks, the way he carries himself on these streams, I'm like, oh, he definitely, I value what he has to input. And so anyway, that that you snipe around the communities, and I think that's something that is really cool.
Yeah, I call it free real estate, and I encourage
Mm,
everybody to do it, right?
mm,
So I used to do it on Instagram and leaving comments. So I have a comment on a Tim Dillon uh, reel as the number one comment, or as like one of the most likes. And so that would used to be one of my ways to drive traffic to my channel, was to think of
mm.
really like, oh, what's the best comment going to be? I'll think of it. And then I would try to increase traffic by communicating in people's chats, but that's limited, right?
Right.
But the best way to get people to see if you have any value is to go up on the panel and share your actual thoughts and ideas. So, but there's a lot of ways to grow your channel or grow whatever you're doing, and I encourage all forms of it. It's free real estate. It's like a billboard on the internet. When people, I saw there's a big YouTuber. He has like 50,000 subscribers, and he makes drama content. And I commented on a Hello Mark Harley. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Um, comment. He used to work with Brendan Schaub, the comedian. Do you know who that is?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there was some beef with Hello Mark Harley, and this big YouTuber was covering all the drama, and I went and watched the video, and I could see my little profile picture, and he was doing a breakdown of the Instagram comment section, but he blacked out my name. And
Oh.
I was like, that was free real estate. That's why I was doing that. And but there's lots of ways where like people can find your content, and I try to be as witty as I am online in my chats.
I think even that he blacked you out. I think there's more that like energetically he is acknowledging Provo Kid, and then that he cannot but help it resonate out into the world, and then the name Provo Kid starts to kind of seep into other people's consciousness. And then going to like how you went from like one or two of an audience, and you're saying that you're growing, which I'm really excited for. And I guess I was going to ask then, how does knowing that more people are watching your material, um, like, are you in conversation with those people more? Is there more interaction, or is it just knowing that there are more people change the way that you want to present your story, or is it changing how you envision your story?
Um, it does impact me because I do live stream my podcast, which is because my podcast I post on Spotify and iTunes. It's a stream of conscious of me talking to myself for an hour. But I do it live to make it feel real. Like if I just recorded myself in a room and nobody was watching live, I wouldn't feel that tension, that
Yeah.
ability to make a mistake. And I see the numbers go up. What it all I really feel in the end is like I want to make what I try to do as best as possible, which is I like telling stories from my personal life that I see in public or that I experience. That's what I find to be the most entertaining thing for me and maybe for other people. And so, like when I what I want to do at the end of the day is like go to museums. I want to go to a park. I want to go to a grocery store and get stories from my community, and then share like what I see in the world through a podcast. So that's like the main thing I feel like now is like I don't want to regress into uh, and it's been happening for me like really repetitive. Cause maybe I haven't been out as much, and I try to go online every day. So if I don't go out or if I don't see new things, I just get stuck on the same topic sometimes. But to answer your question, the more viewers and the more outreach I have, at the end of the day, I just feel like I need to deliver more and telling more interesting stories from the state of Utah and from my life. And also, I do analyze the news and stuff a little bit, but
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I want to give maybe funnier takes, more nuanced ones there. But yeah, having a larger audience, it has impacted me. I just want to be better, but it's difficult.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like you were saying, if as long as you just continue forward, it'll improve. And I really think so. I think, it's like at this point, it's like it could only improve unless, yeah, I don't know. Um,
Are you familiar with a website called Social Blade?
you were mentioning this the other time in one of your recent streams.
Yeah, so you can look up YouTubers or Instagrammers, and I got they give you grades for Instagram for how good
Right.
your Instagram. I'm like a D. My Instagram's got a bad social credit score. But my YouTube's projected in a few years, maybe 10, I'll have 20,000 subscribers. And I don't know
Yeah.
how this algorithm does it, but just to look at that and to believe that, like it's kind of it's hard to understand, but I believe it'll happen. I just
You,
hope they're real people.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You know who was I was talking to is the guy you interviewed, the Captain Kennedy.
Yeah, he's a legend.
Dude, I don't know anything really about his story. I just watched the interview and I talked to him a little bit, and I watch his stuff on Instagram. And there's something that at some point I'll talk to you about it more. But he's really yeah, he's really amazing. And he was saying something like that you're part of this like avant-garde, that like genius level. And I was like, definitely. I'm not trying to, blow smoke or anything, but I'm like, this the stuff that you're playing with, these ideas, and the way that you like hyper focus into certain stories or life experiences is something I think a lot of people are doing, but no one's actually talking about and sharing it, that like meta experience. And I was like, man, he's totally right. Like, because it's magnetizing. I'm like, I really want to talk to you, and I normally don't do this kind of stuff. Like, I'm like really trying to step out. And I was like, wow, this is there. He's definitely right on it.
Yeah, well, that's very kind of him and very kind of you. And I I appreciate that a lot. And I found like you reached out to me, and I've reached out to other people as well. And I think it is amazing. Like people are more than willing. Like even Chalk Body Outline, I think he's got something too. And a lot of other people are pretty welcoming. And yeah, and we all make content in our own unique ways. And I think you can take a little bit of what I do. I would encourage everyone to do it and give their own spin and take on it. Right. Cause you can, I mean, everybody's life is so different. And their stories, I think, are so amazing because what people see in life. So you only see videos sometimes, right? And I think people are natural storytellers. And if you just give them the chance, man, they got a lot to say. But thank you
Mhm.
for those kind words, man.
Oh, for sure, for sure. I mean it. I don't know if that, I mean, I'm really stoked. Thanks for like working through with all these hiccups and stuff. Is there anything that like you thought I might ask that I could have asked, or is there anything that like to close it out? Is there anything that you were thinking?
Uh, I mean, not particularly, but I am curious as to like what well, like what's your path forward? What kind of content would you like to release in the future, or are you going to go towards panels? Am I going to see the JFK panel, or
Um, I think for now, I like this. This is like interacting with you and maybe Austin from the In a Thought Experiment, maybe Ben, that's like more the personality that I'm geared for. The other part of it was that those they're not disagreements, arguments that they've been having. It's so outside of my realm of like existing. Like I'm high in agreeableness, so I'm never trying to like start beef with people and like this is how I see it, and this you know I'm usually like okay we don't see eye to eye and I respect that and you know so there was something about that that was really pulling me into it that I said I need more of this because I'm so agreeable. I need to work on my debating skills, my like logic and rhetoric. And like this is stuff that I never really did growing up. Like I know that exists, but so I think for
that
now I just need to like how I've trained for like 20, 30 years. I'm like I need to train in this art of conversation and presenting ideas and having it be coherent and actually like substantial.
I love that, and it is when you put it that way, it's fun to do. By the way, the rhetoric, even the engagement. I'm very agreeable too, but it's fun to just try to maybe play devil's advocate, or like I
Exactly.
have a different thought, or I just don't want you to just say or just have your opinion be the only opinion. But yeah, I love that you're pursuing that. And I think I am in my own way too, because it is fun. It's so much talking out loud, and talking with other people is one of the most enjoyable things I think in the world. And when it's done right, there's nothing better. There's a quote, I forget by who. He says, it's Hubbard, not the scientist.
Mm-mm.
The what's he what's his name? I want to say, I don't know. His last name's Hubbard. So the best conversations are between two people, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's always true. I think that's why relationships and marriages work. I think as soon as you add a third party, things become difficult or not as smooth in a conversation. But a mediator is always nice sometimes. But to get down to like a real wholesome conversation and find out what another person thinks, uh, having a conversation between two people is always, I think, the best way to do it. But panels are good too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I last little bit because I don't want to hold your time up, but I was thinking like that's another part for me that I realized like we're so hungry for. I might be making, but we're so hungry for connection and for having genuine conversations. I feel like we've been really, as a people, atomized and isolated, especially the past couple of years, and that like a lot of people they don't know it, but they need to connect more. They need to connect just in like talking to someone that has that wants to talk about the things that they want to talk about. Like, you know, a lot of people I interact with, they're not trying to talk about the ideas that I'm thinking of. So I'm like, I need to search for those people. And like, that's the cool thing about the YouTube that it's now showing me there are people here and they're not in your physical location, but you can now have these conversations. You can let your brain grow a little bit more. um I forget what the rest of it was, but I mean, I think that and then we're really hungry for, my other part is, can we also connect physically? Can we have our bodies move through space, exercise, and be expressive? And because that's the other part that I think we need to feed.
Yeah, it's a dual need, mind and body, right? And there's a way to like these conversations I'm having with you and the ones you enjoy. They remind me of like conversations I had in college with like other people who were pursuing higher intellect, whether they were reading a book or whether they were listening to a lecture, and then they would share their ideas with you. And it was always, I like that, right? To me, sometimes the best parts of college were the conversations you had with your professors and peers after and before class,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
during as well. And to have these kinds of conversations, they are available online. They don't just go away when you stop going to school, or maybe you have friends that used to have those conversations with that they're not around anymore. But they are. I think people need to have them, right? They need to have these whatever conversations they want, but it is enjoyable, and
Mm-hmm.
there's opportunities now. So, and to have this conversation before, I don't know the chances of us having this without the internet or Instagram or
Yeah,
these
this
tools.
technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as much as I niched on screens, I do think there's, for adults, a lot of value in it as a tool, and we get to extract whatever we want out of it. I think of it maybe as I always get corrected up on this. Paleontology's dinosaurs, right?
Okay.
Archaeology's when we dig up human stuff. So this is like paleontology for me. Like when we have a conversation, by the end of it, the beginning we're digging up something, right? And we find a little bit here, and we find a little bit here, and we find a little bit here, and then at the end of it, maybe we discovered something new or something better understood. But that's always, I think, the goal when people should have a conversation is they might have an idea of what they're looking for, but by the end of it, they'll discover maybe something new or awesome and amazing. So thank you
Yeah,
for
yeah,
having this conversation
yeah,
with
yeah,
me.
yeah. Right on. Thanks, Provo Kid.
Yeah, really appreciate it. And I have this for you. I told you about your hoodie. Okay. I finished it up.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a dark purple. So I'm finishing up the patches on it. Do you have any, I'll throw around, I'll pick my own. But do you like nature?
Sure do.
Okay. Cause that's what I got. I got a bunch of nature patches.
Oh, right on, right on.
So I'll be sending that to you. And a few extra goodies I encourage you. I got your sticker right here, but everybody go check out JFK Beta. He's got his stickers. I got my own now. You inspired me, brother.
Oh, that's yours. Oh, how cool.
Yeah. So I'll be sending you some of these,
Cool. Oh, that's
some
so
Provo Kid
cool.
merch.
Yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. I totally forgot. I was like, what are you talking about? And then, yeah, awesome. I know how busy things are. So yeah, totally.
I used to, yeah, for people who don't know, I used to have an only fan of the month, and I used to tie dye pretty frequently for that. And then I got more than one fan, and I stopped doing it. But and then I did a big tie dye project this past week, so I'm sending out a bunch of packages. So Flipside, you should check her out, and a bunch of other people will be getting some nice packages. So
Cool,
God
cool.
bless you. Thank you for your Temple of the Swoley Ghost. We didn't talk about that at all. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Um, I guess I'll tell you a bit because I'm not too versed in all theology and biblical stuff. I went to school and Hebrew school and I got bar mitzvah and all that stuff, but I don't really practice that anymore. And now I just think like, can I connect to God more through my movement and learn about God in a very real way, not through like reading scripture and stuff like that. I think that's just not for me at this moment. But anyway, my friend was telling me about the Holy Ghost, and not that I know anything about it, but then we were talking about what if this ghost was super swole, like super strong, and then we started riffing with that idea, and it just really stuck in my head. I was like, yeah, like, and the body is a temple, so the temple of the Swoley Ghost, and yeah.
I loved it. For me, I think it would do if you could make some merch for Utah. It
Mm,
would be worn by all the gym bros. I'm telling you, if you got some Temple of the Swoley Ghost merch, because the Holy Ghost is popular here, so
okay, okay,
a lot of people love the Holy Ghost.
right on, right on.
So the Swoley Ghost would be pretty cool, man. But
I
thanks for sharing that with me. I love
Mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. No, thanks for asking. It's going to encourage me to streamline that idea more. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, God bless you, and let me know if there's another time and place you want to do this, and I'll be there.
Thanks, Provo Kid. God bless you. I appreciate it.